My name's Jason Gonzalez, and I'll be kicking off the presentation this morning. It's about implementing modern technology to assist inmates in requesting important services, and we'll talk about what that means in a second. So let's go to the next slide. So the problem we're trying to address here is that inmates in the Los Angeles County Jail System, which is the largest jail system in the country, it's got like about 15,000 inmates in it currently in jails scattered throughout the county. Those inmates are allowed to make requests for services, and that can mean requests for medical attention, mental health treatment, vocational training, religious services, information about the court status, things like that. And the current system is one that's based on paper. They literally fill out a piece of paper in triplicate, give it to someone, that person takes it somewhere, processes it, and brings paper back. So it's labor intensive, it's inefficient, it creates a record-keeping nightmare because, as you can imagine, these facilities are scattered all over the place and the processing takes place all over the place. It just leads to a lot of problems. So the solution that we're proposing is a modern, scalable electronic platform, essentially a tablet solution that's like an iPad, essentially, that allows inmates to submit and the Sheriff's Department staff to process and track these service requests. And as we'll talk about, our proposal describes, you can use an outside vendor, a third party, to provide a cost-free installation of this program. In other words, they can come in and build the entire infrastructure, provide and maintain the tablets, and provide the services all at no cost to the county. That's one of their models. They get the payments back from the inmates or the inmate's family. And it's a scalable option in the sense that if we bring in these vendors, we can expand just from responding to inmate requests for services to providing streaming services and things like that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So let's go to the next slide. So our approach to this project was, again, the goal is to have a modern, efficient, and scalable solution for processing inmate service requests, the requests I just described. The purpose is, as I described, to better serve inmates, and that means basically to have them have more opportunities for rehabilitation. That's one of the main goals of the penal system, is to have people, give them the opportunity to rehabilitate themselves and to become better people in society when they're released. It makes it easier for the staff. It improves record keeping. It can reduce litigation risk because if those processes aren't handled properly, we can get sued. And then the scope of our approach here was to focus on first inmate service requests, or ISRs, and then consider scaling the solution to other services, rehabilitation, education, et cetera. And then the methodology we followed is to analyze the existing system, spec out or get specifications for the other system, the new system, evaluate vendors, do interviews, et cetera. So let's go to the next slide. So this might sound, it did to me when I first thought about it. The idea of having, tablets or iPads for inmates sounded pretty innovative, but kind of a little bit maybe too forward thinking, but it's not actually. It turns out that many other law enforcement agencies and penological systems in the entire country have done this project. There's some little shields here. They represent these entities which are in California and around the country. And what we've learned, we had a video for this, but we just didn't have the time to include it. But there are videos out there, if you want to look at it, of people from these agencies talking about the successes of this program. And what they say is that, first of all, the scalable part, where you bring in these streaming services, can include access to Lexis and Nexus for inmates, electronic ebooks, essentially, mental health programming. In other words, not just getting a flyer back or something, but actual streaming services where you can get mental health and medical treatment. You can get vocational training. You can have text chats with family members, and you can have movies and video games, just pure entertainment. And the value has been, in addition to rehabilitation, it provides actually a means of reducing trouble in the jails, essentially. For the jails that have implemented this, there are fewer reports of disciplinary problems, mental health issues, et cetera. And one of the things that people have pointed out is that inmates like these tablets so much that if you have the ability to take them away, if the staff has the ability to take them away, it helps the inmates basically stay in line. They don't want to lose them. So the behavior tends to improve. And then, as I said, the main cost model is that the vendor puts in the infrastructure for free, provides the tablets for free to the county, and then provides the services for free, and they charge the inmates and the inmates' families for the services. And my colleague Frederick will talk about that in a little bit. Next slide. And just very briefly on this, the Sheriff's Department in Los Angeles has thought about this program for many, many years. Back in 2014, they started a pilot program that just focused on inmate service requests. They did that all in-house. It didn't work out that well. Doing it in-house is a bit of a difficult challenge. 2015, 2016, the department issued requests for information to vendors to learn more about the systems and what they could provide. And then up until more recently, they have discussed and gotten proposals that would link these services to the telecommunications system. But at the same time, the board has expressed concern about inmates and their families being charged a lot for these sorts of services. So again, my colleague Fred will talk about that in the remaining parts of the program. But for now, I'll turn it over to my colleague Jabari, who will take it from here.
Hello, my name is Jabari Williams with Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And we had a little bit of background on the pilot, the tablet program. So now I'm just going to talk about our proposals. So we propose to build an inmate service request application from ground up and actually acquire the tablets and the necessary IT infrastructure to have those tablets run within the jail facilities and to provide certain services on those tablets. So as we mentioned earlier, we're going to start off small. We're going to start off at Century Regional Detention Facility, which is a female's jail. And at this point, that jail has a max capacity of around 2,000, which makes it a good population to start with. We hope to provide all of the inmates with their own individual tablets and then survey and get feedback from these inmates to see how it works. Just to start off, we're going to begin with just having inmates be able to do inmate service requests only at this time. And then based on the feedback and any liabilities that we discover, we hope to expand it to other facilities throughout the jail system. And even expand the services that are provided on those tablets to include education, communication, a way for them to speak to their families and loved ones while they're inside jail, and to provide appropriate entertainment on those iPads. So here you may not be able to see it very well, but this is a current inmate request form. And on these request forms, inmates can request medical and mental health services. They request to speak to a chaplain or other religious services. They can get information from module deputies, including release dates and how much money they may have on their account to purchase things. And they can also request to be assigned to alternative to custody, which includes work release and electronic monitoring. And then they can also get simple inmate services and ask to be in education classes, all on this form. This is what they were used to request. So the current inmate request system goes as following. An inmate would fill out that form that you saw on the last slide. They would drop it into a locked box. A supervisor from the Sheriff's Department would actually come by, get that request form, determine which department within that facility it goes to, and then physically or somehow make sure that request form gets to that department. So if an inmate wanted to speak to a dentist or see a doctor, they would fill out that form and the supervisor would have to make sure that it gets to the medical department. In doing so, sometimes there's some things that happen in the shuffle, things get lost, and it's not an efficient way to track the progress of the request form. So our proposed process will be all electronic. An inmate would have the tablet in front of them. They can make the request on that tablet, and it's electronically sent to that department within the facility to handle that request in an appropriate manner, and also provide feedback to the inmate on the status of their request. And in doing so, it's a better way of tracking that request that the inmates are making. And on the next slide, I believe Jamie's going to talk more about the technology of the tablets.
Thanks, Jabari. Hi, I'm Jamie Middleton from the Department of Public Health. So what does this technology look like? There are multiple vendors that offer the comprehensive tablet services, meaning their services go far beyond just the individual tablet. As Jason said, included in the contract, no cost to the county or the infrastructure, the installation of building wiring. all the necessary equipment, the servers, the routers, the tablets themselves, but they also offer the software support and the maintenance support. And then their business mechanism is to charge the tablet services individually to inmates or the families for services beyond basic offerings. And so this can be purchase of music, movies, games, or video calls. But programs can also be set up to allow inmates to work to earn technology credits. It's another option. The county can also subsidize some of these costs. There are multiple benefits to using the vendor services. So we're leveraging companies that are already existing phone and telecommunications providers within the correctional facilities. The system will be separate from all other systems within the jail. And these companies can install biofencing. So different areas of the facility would have different access levels and aiding in the security. The companies also provide the technical support, so we don't have to have that expertise or staffing in-house. The tablet technology can interface with the cloud, and this is where the application for these e-requests would be placed. Our central services with the county would only need to support the application itself and not the entire system. By acquiring these tablets in a leasing model, we also ensure that as technology upgrades are available, those are traded in, whereas in an owned model, purchased tablets can become obsolete over time. Next, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the benefits of the tablet and application implementation in the correctional facilities. Overall, we see the benefits outweigh the challenges, and there is value added throughout the division. The electronic tablet inmate service request improves the efficiency of the process and staffing needs. It's much less labor intensive to use an electronic system where the inmate can check real time and have improved access to support services. It helps improve communication and mitigate issues when there is movement within the justice system. For example, movement within different floors or different facilities for the inmates. As well, tablet implementation improves the quality of life of inmates. It expands opportunities for education, for advancement, for mental health services, but it also occupies the mind. This can decrease the hostility and improve morale. In one of the counties that had put a video online about their services and implementing tablet services, they had mentioned that their suicide ideation in inmates had gone down about 50% after implementation of the tablet program. The tablet program also allows for families, including children, to have visitation remotely and help families keep them more connected. The improved access to needed services can also save the county on lawsuits and grievances with improved communication networks and access to timely services. I will now hand it over to my colleague, Marian, who will talk more about the system architecture.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jamie. My name is Marian Alvos. I'm from the Department of Mental Health. And what you see in front of you here is an architectural diagram. We spent some time taking a look at the ecosystem and trying to come up with a proposed architecture for this type of solution. On the right, you'll see the proprietary system, which is the LA Sheriff's Department network, which obviously isn't contained within that box, and it's the security that's around it, that CJIS compliant, and how it would interface with this new technology that we're proposing. And so in the middle, you'll see a secure data exchange that would be through a cloud services provider, through real-time data exchanges. So the sheriff's staff would be sitting on the right, interfacing through the web with the tablet. And so they'd take a look at the information within their system. And the inmates, on the other hand, would be on the left-hand side in the vendor ecosystem, in which they're obviously contained within the tablet ecosystem. And so you have the vendor would, as Jamie stated, would come in and implement a Wi-Fi internet access points that would be obviously highly regulated. And included in the tablet, we're proposing not just the vendor proposed applications, but also the ISR, which would be the icon on the right, which we spent some time taking a look at what the user interface of that and the look and the feel of that application would be. And also in the middle, we took a look at applications that the county provides for mental health services, such as I Prevail, that are free to anyone in the county, that, and other services that are important for inmates in order to do once they are released from incarceration. So next slide, please. The next couple of slides are just a mock-up of our application. It's there would be some authentication for the inmates, and then once they sign in, they'd be able to request the services that are provided. They'd be able to monitor those requests and then check the status of the screen of the requests. Similarly, the sheriff's staff would be able to input that information and be able to have a real-time interface. So next slide, please. So there are some operational challenges that we've definitely taken a look at. We've thought extensively about the application security, theft and misuse of these devices, and talked about what the connectivity would be like, with especially in older buildings, and the need for very detailed design of the access points in order to be able to have redundancy, and then also, and more importantly, the administrating of access. And finally, just making sure that there's really good detailed security protocols if there is an incident or an intrusion, that both the vendor and central IT would be coordinating. So those are the things that we took a look at and definitely outlined in our document. So now Frederick's going to be taking over and discussing further operational challenges and costs. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Frederick Lacey. I'm with the Office of the Inspector General. What I'd like to talk about is some cost concerns. As you've heard from my colleagues, our intent and the method that other jurisdictions used was to leverage the amount of money a vendor would make from media services to families and inmates, and use that leverage to get them to include our ISR application into the entire package. As we've said earlier, the LA County jail system is the largest in the country, if not the world. Some of these vendors make millions of dollars providing entertainment, movies, messaging to inmates and their families. So I think we can use that to get our package included into the entire system. One thing that needs to be considered is the costs that are going to be saved from this program. There's going to be less violence, less disputes. They'll have access to mental health and better rehabilitation and decreased recidivism. Next slide, please. The hidden costs that we want to address, and I think the Board of Supervisors are interested in, comes through potential price gouging to inmates and their families. There have been studies in the last few years, and I've heard personally from people who've been in county jail that the phone calls and the phone system, which is used through a vendor, can cost as much as $6 a minute for talking to your family. In the complete vendor system, they could potentially charge inmates for money transfers, messaging, release cards, and media. Some of these vendors have made millions of dollars actually taking advantage of incarcerated people. I think a important aspect of this would be to put some type of safeguard and warning to inmates and their families that these media devices are not free, and people need to seriously consider the cost of them. Next slide, please. So funding quickly. There are alternate sources of funding if there's any funding gaps. AB 109 is a California state law that allows prisoners to be housed in county jail rather than state prison. So state funding would be available. Other sources could be through the sheriff's budget, through federal funding, through private foundations. We could also go to the Board of Supervisors for some supplemental budget benefits, and that's what other cities have done through their jurisdiction's general fund. Next slide, please. We've kind of gone through the nuts and bolts of this. The next steps would potentially be getting proposals from vendors, selecting a vendor, going to the board with the vendor and funding issues and any other concerns. There have to be the completing the inmate service request application, LASD policy, installing the vendor, rolling out the vendor, ISR at CRDF, and if successful, continuing to other areas within the facility. We've presented basic information to begin the startup tablet program implementation. I know there's some sheriff's executives within cohorts 39 and 40. We're more than willing to talk to them to discuss this plan further, and hopefully it will be implemented. If successful, the tablet program will be beneficial to inmates, families, and the LA community at large. Anybody interested in learning more about the tablet programs, we've attached a list of references as our last slide. And if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free. Thank you.